going to start on my beads of courage box. I've got some oak roughly milled, and I'm going to be cutting this African mahogany. I have the blade set at 18 degrees. I'm going to use stave construction. I'm going to make 10 staves, 5 of each, and then I'm going to do something special to one of them. First thing I want to do is rip these into rough, because I don't want these joints in here. So I'm going to take this to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut it into rough lengths like this. And when I get that done, I'll bring those back over here, and then we can run them through and make our staves. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do after that. Anyway, this is going to be a beads of courage box. I'm going to be using red oak and the Sipo, aka African mahogany. But I have something very special planned for the oak pieces, so you'll just have to follow with me. Okay, I've got these all ready to go. Push block. I made one slight adjustment because I don't want to risk having a crooked edge to the bandsaw, so I set this out just a little bit. That is close enough, and I've got 2 really good edges, perfect for gluing. If that was done right, now all of these bottom edges need to be square, obviously, and they're not because of the way these are leaning. Let me get these manageable lengths and I'll come back. I know the angle is right. I used an electronic angle gauge. I don't know how lucky I'm going to be able to get this on there, but we're going to try. You'll see that it should come out just about right. My wingspan ain't big enough. There we go. That's not bad. I may have some, I'll glue halves and whatnot, and I may have some tweaking to do once I get each half glued up so that they fit better, but that's pretty close. I'm going to leave the angles on the outside. I'm not going to turn it round at all. I'm not going to turn the inside round either. Let me make sure of my dimensions. The box is supposed to be 6 inches wide. It's 6 5/8, but it's big enough inside that little hands can go in here and get their stuff. What I will do is, once this is all glued up, I'll put it on the lathe. I will turn a lid for it, and I will, in the bottom, I will cut a rabbet on the lathe and make a plywood bottom for this that I will just glue in. So this will have to be cut round to make the rabbet, but that's no big deal either. I can did that without any problem, I hope. These will have to be cut to length. I will do that after I finish the next step. Well, the next step is sanding, but after the step after that, and I'll show you what that is. I've got something very special planned. So after I get these sanded up, I'll come back. Remember I told you I had a little something special planned for the oak staves. This is one of those special things. I'm lasering images that I think a child might like or enjoy onto each of these pieces of oak. I will show you what they look like as they get done. This one is some hot air balloons. It's going to take 21 minutes to run, so we'll let this go and I'll show you what this one looks like when it's finished. Okay, here's the first one done. 4 to go. And here's the second one. And here's the third one. Oh, and this is the fourth one finished. And here's the last one done. Now I get to, well, I'm gonna sand them up a little bit, and then I'm gonna color them. We'll see how that goes. So I've started coloring these already. I used this Sharpie Mean Streak for the white. It says it dries fast and it's permanent. I will blend this seafoam in with some blues. Anyway, I'm just coloring away and we'll see where we get. Okay, that one's done. There's the rocket. And there's the last one. So here they are, all colored, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. Honestly, I really do. I think the kid that gets this is really gonna dig it. Now I want to make sure I let these dry a while before I start messing with it, because I don't want to rub any of this off or smudge it or smear it. So I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit, and then I will start gluing these together in twos. So I'll glue two, leave one, and then 2 and 2, and I'll leave that one. So I'll glue these two together and these two together, and just leave them sit to dry. So I'll 2, 2, 2, and 2, and then I'll leave them sit to dry. I don't have any way of clamping them, so basically I'm gonna do the rub joint thing like this, and then just hold it for 30 seconds to a minute and set it aside and let it cure. But you get the gist. That's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to let these dry for a little while. Again, I'm going to do the rub method here. Just want to make sure you get glue all over both joints. You don't want any dry spots, because that will give you a dry glue joint. You don't want that. So now we stick them together, we rub, and we hold it for the glue joint. This will be sanded away. I'll be sanding it by hand lightly. Good tight joint. So I'm going to let that dry probably overnight. It's late in the afternoon, and I'll come back and we will glue the remaining two pieces on, and when that sets up a little while, we'll glue each half together. Then I can see how well the joints line up and how much sanding I might have to do on one piece or the other. So we'll come back then. Well, I got in a hurry yesterday and messed up a little. Not too terribly bad, but I should have cut these to length before I started the glue up process. It's not too late. The problem is this needs only 5 inches tall, and right now it is 6 7/8. So I'm going to have to take nearly an inch off of each side. So let me get set up for that and I'll come back. So how do I fix it? Like this. Set my stop to that mark. Now I take the same one that I started with and I adjust my stop block. I want to sneak up on this first cut, make sure it's right. And that's perfect. So now I'll cut the rest of them. Does this little guy remind anybody else of Dennis the Menace? Okay, Now I can finish gluing it together. And when I'm back over there set up for that, I'll come back. Now we go back to the rub joint thing. Before I glue these two pieces together, I'm going to glue this third piece onto this. And I will let it sit only as long as it takes me to get everything together, because then I'm going to put it back in the rubber bands and let it set overnight. So I just want to do the same thing as I did before. I'm just not going to wait quite as long between what I'm doing, because I'm going to put quite a few rubber bands on it. But I will, okay, that's about 30 seconds. I'm going to let that sit aside for a minute while I do this one. Now we'll do this one. Now, because these aren't fully square with each other, I'm going to put those pegs in there while I put the rubber bands on. And now that should work good enough for a glue up. I'm going to let that dry overnight. And when I come back out here in the morning, I'll sand each side flat. It won't take long. And then I can glue this together and put it back in the rubber bands. Before I glue it together though, I will hand sand the inside of this and remove any excess glue that I wasn't able to get to, so that this is nice and smooth. I have the lid for the box gluing up in walnut. This is some Sipo that I glued up. I'm going to make this into a knob. It's going to be relatively big. Again, small hands are going to be grabbing it. I want it to be easy to get a hold of. I'm using walnut for the lid because walnut is relatively light. So I'm going to get this rough turned and sanded up. First thing I'm going to do is round this over some. This is a spindle, so I'm going to use my spindle gouge. It's a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. This gouge has a Mark Soleil grind on it, or at least that's what I was shooting for. Well, that needs no sanding. What I'm going to do now is take this in just a little bit. I'm going to leave a bead out here and then take that flat inside. Alright, well that's the knob, but yeah, that looks pretty weird, right? Kind of funky in there. That's not going to stay that way. I'll show you what I mean. So I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. This is going to take about 8 minutes. So how does it look? Well, it's a little off center. I thought I had it a little better than that, but it'll work. Okay, I've rough turned this to a 6-inch diameter, and I've marked on here, so I'm going to sand this until it's flat. It doesn't need much. I did both sides. See, it didn't take long, and now you can see I've got a perfect joint. I'm going to sand the inside of this up and glue these together. And so I've got this rough turn to 6 inches. This is going to be the inside, this will be the outside. I'm going to turn this relatively flat. It's pretty flat now, but I'm going to make sure and make it flat. I'm going to engrave something special on the lid. Okay, time to glue this up now. Okay, I've got this glued up. I'll sand the inside again a little bit after it dries, and I will let this dry overnight before I do anything with it. Okay, I want to make sure this is flat, so we do this one more time. Now we're gonna sand. I'm gonna sand the mahogany parts starting at 150. Just going over this ever so lightly with 400. I'm gonna have some recoloring to do, but I knew that was gonna be the case anyway. I'm not afraid to tell you I'm more than a little worried about this. That should be deep enough, and it is. That's perfect. Get rid of any sharp edge over there. Can you tell I was worried a little bit with the tape? All right, let me get it turned around and I'll come back. Okay, now we'll do this side. That is what I did not want to happen. Only thing hurt is my pride. I'll come back when I figure something out. Since I took some of that away, I've only got about a quarter of an inch holding these in. I've got the depth about where I want it. Part of me says to put this in here and give it a little round over. The other part of me says, don't you even dare. So what I think I'll do is I'll use a chamfer bit on my palm router, and I will just chamfer this edge, and I will sand the inside of this up again and sand this up nice. This is sanded pretty well already, but I'll sand it one more time. I'll just sand it up one more time like this. Take my measurement and cut the lid to fit in here. And I'll come back when I'm ready to do some of that. You know, it wouldn't be me turning if it didn't come off the lathe, almost, would it? It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens more often than I'd like. I was wrong about one thing when I said there wasn't any damage. This corner is dented in, and there's a bit of a dent right here. So what I'm gonna do, I've got my electric grinding iron heated up. It takes about 45 minutes. So when that comes, when that gets heated, what I'll do is I will put, like you may have seen me do in the past, I'll take a piece of shop towel, get it nice and wet, put it on here, and I will hit that with the branding iron and swell that back up so that most of that will go away. And I'll do that in both places. Let's see if we can get that out. The wood takes the water in, and then when you apply the heat, it creates steam and it swells those pores back up. Often you can get a very seamless repair. If you don't know it got messed up, you won't recognize it. Well, stupid me forgot to hit record. I have the back cut down to the right size. I'm going to do some work on the front and round this edge over. Sand it all up good. Hit it with some sanding sealer. And then I'll turn it around and put it in my vacuum chuck and finish to the inside of the lid. I'm not going to do a whole lot out here. This is only about 3/8 of an inch thick as it is. And that's flat enough. That's perfect. Look how pretty that walnut is. Okay, I will let that dry for a few minutes. It's already pretty much dry. So now I'm going to turn it over. I don't think I'm going to have to use a vacuum chuck. I've got a chuck I think I can expand into here. When I get that ready, I'll come back and we'll do the bottom. Let's take care of this bottom. Again, I think I can start with 120. Again with the Mylons. This time I'm going to put it here. Ooh, look at that walnut shine. Yes, I have some more lasering going on the lid. Engraving my logo in the bottom. I got it turned and sanded up. I am applying water-based poly. This is crystal clear matte. I'm applying that to the inside of the box. I don't think there's any reason to make it glossy at all. I've applied 2 coats of shellac sanding sealer to the inside already, and I will probably hit this with 2 or 3 coats. Just depends on how it's looking. Again, this is going to be a matte finish. It doesn't have to be shiny on the inside. And I'll keep putting coats on this as long as I need to. I'll let this dry a few minutes and I'll put another coat on. Okay, so I've got 2 coats of poly on here. This is the engraving. You may have to pause it if you want to read it. And I engraved the top as well. So now I can start putting things back together. I can start putting things together. This has 2 coats of poly on the inside. I think it looks good. It doesn't really need any more. It's nice and dry. And this is dry enough for me to glue into the bottom. So I will do that after I get more prepared. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put a bead of glue. Okay, so I've got that spread. I'm going to make this kind of the front of the box and set that so that it's even. Now, all I need to do is put my little weight thing on it for a clamp, and I'll let that sit there for, a good hour or so. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the knob. Put some glue around here. And I'm being sparing with it. I mean, I'm not being sparing with it. I'm being pretty, because I don't know, there's no squeeze out. Oh yeah, that'll work. Now I need to put something on that that's relatively heavy. That should be enough weight. I'll let those sit under the weight, and that should tack up enough. Okay, I'm gonna let this glue set up, and then I'll come back out here tomorrow, and hopefully we can get this finish sprayed on this. Okay, time to put the finish on the bottom and the top of the lid. Well, that's a heavier coat than I really wanted, but so I'll let that dry a half hour or so, come back, hit it with another coat. Time to put the finish on the sides and the inside of the lid. I'm gonna have to rework the top of the lid. I'm not real happy with it. I've sanded it up. I'll reshoot it after I do the bottom. Half hour, I'll come back and do it again. So here it is, my Beads of Courage box. Lid's done, nice and shiny. I think it came out really nice. I like all of the pictures. I love the lighthouse. I love the hot air balloons. The little boy with the kite, the rocket. And this little single balloon even looks good. What kid doesn't like a balloon? So that's it. Got my logo engraved in the bottom. I engraved a little saying, or actually it's my message to the child, and this is a saying on the inside that I got from the Beads of Courage website. The message on the inside reads, each bead marks your journey, each one giving honor and acknowledgement to your story. Your beautiful story of courage that you can tell the world by holding up your strand and not speaking a word. And that came from some Beads of Courage site that I found. And the one in the bottom of the lid I wrote, and it says, my prayer for you is a simple one. May God continue to give you the strength and courage you have shown on your path, a path many wouldn't be strong enough to handle. This box is but a humble token that I hope brings you joy. And I hope those are appropriate. I tried to find out if I could do something like that, if it was allowed, and I couldn't find anything that said I couldn't, so I did. Anyway, I will probably, that's the box. I'm gonna let the finish cure for, well, at least over the weekend. Next week is SWAT, and I will buff this up next week before I go. But I need to let that finish cure for a few days first. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you all next time.